Okay.
entitled White Rural Rage, the Threat to American Democracy. And Tom, we'll start with you. Why are white rural voters a threat to democracy at this point? You would think, as we pointed out, looking at Joe Biden's background and Donald Trump's, that the opposite would be true.
I mean, we lay out the fourfold interconnected threat that white rural voters pose to the country. First of all, and we show 30 polls and national studies to demonstrate this. We provide the receipts in Chapter 6. They are the most racist, xenophobic, anti-immigrant, and anti-gay geodemographic group in the country. Second, they're the most conspiracist group. QAnon support and subscribers, election denialism, COVID denialism and scientific skepticism, Obama birtherism. Third, anti-democratic sentiments. They don't believe in an independent press, free speech. They're most likely to say the president should be able to act unilaterally without any checks from Congress or the courts or the bureaucracy. They're also the most strongly white nationalist and white Christian nationalists. And fourth, they are most likely to excuse or justify violence as an acceptable alternative to peaceful public discourse.
So you mentioned a lot of negative factors about this demographic. Tom, what else do they have in common?
I think that what really matters at
what
this
makes
point
them
in time.
vulnerable?
Oh, well, a lot of that has to do with, as a starting point, the problems that rural America has, which are very real and very profound. They have the more problematic education systems. They have poor infrastructure. They've had a lack of economic opportunity. We've seen a lot of manufacturing jobs leave from rural areas. And that.
Okay. So, there you have it. I want you to just take that in for a moment and let me know what you think.
Okay. Oh, wow. There's a lot to break down there from those two clowns. So, first of all, let's just start. I knew they were going to go to education, right? So it just came out.
Well, education and income. These poor, distasteful people.
Yes. So here's the thing. California is now the #1 state with the least amount of high school graduates. And they also have the highest rate of illiteracy. And California is not really considered a rural state.
Nope.
Right? When they're talking about rural, they're talking about flyover country.
Yep.
Right?
Exactly.
Right. Also, I would point out that 9 of the top 10 states for hate crime are all Democrat states. So he's assuming that, all the hate crime and all of that happens in rural areas. And that's per person, but you have to consider it's spread out. But 9 of the top 10 states for hate crime, regardless of the type of hate crime, they're all Democrat states. And they're on Washington, California, D.C., New York. Those are states where you're finding hate. Those are not rural area states.
Well, here's the funny thing about this. And I would say those authors and the anchor moderating this segment, I'm going to use a strong word. I think they're all insane. And I'm saying that not as a joke. I'm saying that in a serious way. And the reason I say that is because insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, right? Mm-hmm. What got Donald Trump elected? This horrible threat to democracy that everybody hates, Donald Trump, right? Donald Trump was elected because the Democratic Party and the establishment Republican Party completely neglected this demographic. Yes. Working class America, flyover country, left them in the dust, both in policy and rhetorically.
Yes.
So you had this...
Their disdain for the American people, and I'm not saying that people on the coast or in Democrat are not American people, but flyover country.
It's America too. It's America as well.
And the disdain for people in those states is palpable.
Yes, and so
they are disgusted by those citizens.
And so the reason I say it's insanity is because they're saying Trump is the worst thing to ever happen to America, yet it was because of comments like that and sentiment like that got Trump elected. And now they're saying, oh, Trump's going to come, he's trying to get back in the White House. He's this threat. But they're feeding the exact sentiment that fueled his base to begin with. So,
Yeah.
so that's why I use the word insane. I don't mean that in a funny way. I mean that as
I know
literal,
what you mean.
in a literal way. So I look at that, and I'm also mind boggled at how unsubtle it was. We've seen, Chris Matthews on that other interview kind of subtly dig at rural voters and people who don't seem to know what's in their best interest. But he was a little more subtle. I mean, to us it seemed really obvious, but he was a little more subtle in how it was worded. They're flat out saying white people suck and we should hate them. That's literally what they're saying. Rural people, rural white people.
And again,
Because
these people who don't vote.
You know why? Because the white person with blue hair who says they're non-binary, who posting about how great Planned Parenthood is, that white person's fine because they're a hipster from New York or Philadelphia.
Yes.
So they're fine. They're a good white, right?
They're one of the good ones.
These are the bad whites.
Well, and the thing is, it goes back to these people who won't do what we want are a threat to democracy.
Yep.
These citizens that we think are beneath us, that we look down on, who believe in some silly god, are beneath us. Here's the biggest bunch of BS in the whole comment. They are more likely to use violence to resolve things. I'm sorry, I don't think it was rural Americans out in 2020 during the BLM riots, taking over police stations, burning down city blocks, killing or attacking police officers and killing citizens. That was not rural America who did that. You want to point to January 6th? I don't even know how many of those people were rural Americans, but they did not go out and destroy cities and burn things down and kill other citizens. And Antifa they're not from rural America either. The most violent things that have happened, these mass protests that became violent, Antifa, they're not from rural America. You can't point to groups in rural America that are going out and committing causing these riots and destroying things. That's absurd. For him to say that is such BS.
Well, I mean, the other thing I don't understand is they're also saying other variables like anti-gay. I mean, like one of the predominant Catholic demographics in the United States are South American immigrants, specifically from South America and Mexico. They're very Catholic. They're usually, even if they're voting Democrat for other reasons, they're usually socially conservative, or at least somewhat socially conservative.
Yes.
So to say just as a whole, and also they define, we've talked about before, how anti-gay is anything except going out of your way to affirm loudly everything that has to do with LGBT or anti-gay if you don't do that.
Right.
So what does anti-gay even mean? The other thing they talk about is COVID denialism.
Yes.
Just because maybe some people don't want to comply with mandated medical.
But it has come out now that Columbia, I think it was Columbia University, but it was an Ivy League college, did study after study after study, and came out and said, masks don't do crap to prevent COVID. The mask thing is a joke. It doesn't. That's from an Ivy League anti-Semitic university.
Dr. Fauci even admitted that the 6 feet rule was very arbitrary.
Yes.
And it was just a guess of what would work, and it wasn't based on science.
And have the headlines not come out and said COVID is basically the flu? I mean, that's what's coming out now is, well, we're going to treat it like the flu. And so this goes back to...
You know what I also think? Sorry, before we move on. I think if people were honest at the beginning about what COVID was and issued even some of the same guidelines that they ended up mandating, but people had more trust in their government, you would have seen much more voluntary compliance with a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. The one thing I will point out is in Florida, where there was no vaccine mandate, their vaccination rate, which is all voluntary because it wasn't mandated, exceeded the national average. Because when people feel they have a choice about something, you're more likely to do it than if they're feeling forced under duress. Nobody wants to do something because somebody's holding a gun to their head and forcing them. So a lot of these people may just have an issue with that, but they're being labeled as COVID deniers, whatever that means.
Well, yeah, they're not denying. This is my thing. It is one of the most American things, one of the most patriotic things to go, Why does the government making me do that?
Yeah.
I'm not doing what the government. That is patriotism. That in yard sales. I feel like yard sales is one of the most American things in the world. It's pure capitalism. I love it. The other one is going, wait, the government says I have to do it. Oh, I'm not doing that. That is a true patriot there. Now, I'm not saying the government's always wrong. I'm just saying that part of the American culture, part of our founding fathers was don't trust the government.
Exactly.
Don't trust them. And so I think that there is a healthy respect for, or a healthy distrust of the government among rural voters. And also, think of the thing they're measuring. These people won't do what the government says, and that's why they're a threat to democracy. That's what democracy is not having to do what your government says. Again, I don't think these people know what democracy is. I don't think they get it. Because these people are a threat to the government. The conversation is the government a threat to us? Right? They've shifted the whole thing. That is incredibly ignorant, incredibly bigoted.
I thought you'd like it. I thought
Super elitist.
the only reason I didn't put it in sooner was I was watching Matt Walsh, Michael Knowles, and Ben Shapiro the last 2 days.
The triple threat of Christian nationalism. Oh wait, Ben Shapiro.
Well, he's evil because he's Jewish, according to the left, right? But if you put them, they all did segments on this, and I was like, man, I love what they had to say. There's a lot I have to say about this too, but it's been talked about already. But then I thought, we're talking about the Christian nationalism on MSNBC. We have to also talk about this. So
it's so elitist. It is so, the disdain that these people have for the average American citizen. And that's what rule is.
Yep.
Rule is your average American citizen is disgusting.
Yep.
It is absolutely reprehensible that you have no respect for the backbone of this country, the citizens who make it work, the ones who are putting in the work, and you don't support manufacturing jobs and helping those things, but your utter disdain because they want to think for themselves is astounding.
And I actually like to thank those two guys though, because they're helping us in 2024. I really believe that.
For sure.
There's no better ally in an election than ridiculous comments like that from the other side.
Yeah.
It's just, so thank you guys. I appreciate. I really mean that genuinely. They're helping us.
Yeah. Look, I grew up in a rural area. I live in a rural area now.
So are they expecting you to just go, wait a minute, I think I'm a racist, xenophobic, bigoted moron, and I should just change my whole worldview?
Yes, I should just, okay, yeah, I will. And what I love is they throw these words out without examples, right? It's they're xenophobic. Every person I know and run into loves to travel, has traveled places, has lived in other places of the world. This is what's astounding.
Well, remember, xenophobia just means you don't support totally open borders with mass unregulated migration. That's xenophobia.
To them.
Yeah.
Yes. To them. And so, again, it's just, that is such elitist garbage and patently false.
You're welcome. I thought you'd love it.